I spent an entire day with a multimillionaire who also happens to be my very first mentor in real estate from 20 years ago. His name is Steve Cook, and Steve has some unconventional ideas about real estate, making money, and building wealth that have profoundly impacted my life and career. Now, Steve actually teaches a unique 10-year plan to become financially free just by flipping 10 houses a year and acquiring only 10 rentals. Now, I've since coined Steve's strategy, the 10-10-10 method. I'm going to break it down for you on this video. All that and more coming up. My older brother Bob is the one who got me into real estate, and he's been a great mentor for me. We've actually partnered and done a lot of deals together over the years. But my very first official mentor, who taught me wholesaling and then later flipping, was Steve Cook. Now, this was around 20 years ago. Steve has been a full-time real estate investor for over 27 years. During all these years, we've remained friends. We've even done some charity work together in Guatemala. Now, today, Steve continues to flip houses. He owns a free and clear portfolio of cash-flowing assets. He lends money. He does one-on-one life coaching. And he's the founder of Life and Air, which teaches entrepreneurs how to use real estate to become financially free and how to live a rich and abundant life. Now, Steve is a devout Christian, and he gives the glory to God for his opportunities and for all of his blessings. Okay, now before I break down Steve's method to become financially free that I call the 10-10-10 method, there is a fundamental philosophy that Steve teaches that you have to understand. And what I'm about to share goes against all conventional wisdom in real estate, but hear me out and then decide for yourself. Steve believes you should not use debt to acquire real estate and that you should live 100% debt-free. Steve believes debt in all its forms is slavery. Debt is the enemy to peace and freedom, and I'm not talking only about consumer debt. I'm talking about any and all debt, even debt for your personal home. Now, Steve explains this using the following story. The average American can't afford to buy a home, so he goes into the bank and he asks the banker, "Will you put up the money for me to buy this house?" The banker says, "Fill out this paperwork and we'll decide if you'll make a good servant." So he fills out the paperwork and he gives it back to the banker. And the banker comes back and says, "Good news, as long as you commit to pay me 35% of your gross income," that's called debt to income ratio, "we'll give you the money to buy the house. But here's the deal. The bank will actually own your house, not you. You can live there as long as you work for the bank for the next 30 years to pay it off, but there is a catch." So the homeowner says, "What's the catch?" The banker replies, "If for some reason you can't pay back the bank, we're going to take the house away from you." So he thinks about it a minute and he says, "Well, I really want the house and I don't have the money, so I'll agree to your terms." So he signs up for 30 years of servitude. And that is basically what happens when someone uses debt to finance a house. Steve emphasizes that the average person doesn't realize that nearly half of their after-tax take-home pay goes to the bank for the next 30 years. That means the first 20 to 30 hours of the work week goes to pay the bank. Now, if you think about it that way, you literally are a slave and the bank is the master. When Steve first explained this to me, I immediately thought of Matthew 6:24. No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Now, this is an interesting way to think about your personal residence, but Steve believes the same applies to investors who buy assets like rentals. Now, most people in real estate are taught to leverage their assets. That means you borrow as much as you possibly can against the equity. Now, Steve agrees that leveraging assets can grow a portfolio quickly, but you are still a slave to the bank. And the problem with leverage assets is you need a lot more of them to get the same net result as a small free and clear portfolio. Now, Steve proved this point to me. I met Steve at a small 7-unit mobile home park that he owns free and clear. That one little free and clear park brings Steve around $100,000 in net annual cash flow because he has no debt. Now, never mind depreciation and other benefits, I'm just talking about cash flow. In comparison, using debt to get the same $100,000 annual net cash flow, you would need a mobile home park that is 7 times bigger, or around 40 units, again, to get the same annual net cash flow. And it doesn't matter if you take over existing debt or create new debt. The lender is the master and the borrower is the slave. Here's the way Steve explains it to help investors grasp the concept. If your goal is money, then by all means, leverage your assets, take on the debt, and acquire as many assets as you can. You can get money faster using debt. But if your goal is freedom and lifestyle, go slower and smaller with no debt. That makes a lot of sense to me. Now, if you had to choose between owning a 40-unit mobile home park, leverage with debt, or a 7-unit mobile home park free and clear for the same $100,000 in annual net cash flow, which would you choose? Well, if freedom and lifestyle are the priority, then the answer is simple. 7 free and clear are better than 40 leverage with debt. Now, to illustrate this point, let me tell you about 3 real estate investors who were buddies that decided to go on vacation together in Europe. The first investor owned 100 units that were leveraged with debt. The second investor owned 50 units that were leveraged with debt. And the third investor owned just 10 units, but he owned them free and clear with no debt. So they went to Europe together, and the first investor who owned the 100 leveraged units was having a great time, but after 1 week, he decided he needed to get home and back to work. The second investor who owned 50 leveraged units was also having a great time, but after 2 weeks, he decided he needed to go home and get back to work. The third investor who owned 10 units free and clear stayed a month and was having such a great time that he extended his trip another month before going back home. Now, what's the moral of the story? Less is more. Fewer properties that are debt-free create real freedom. Now, you might be wondering, sounds good, Jerry, if you don't use leverage, but how do you acquire assets that are free and clear? Great question. Well, first of all, it just won't happen by itself. For sure, you need a very intentional plan. To answer that question, let's go back to something that I teach often that I first learned from my friend Chris Rude, and that is a concept of 3 different speeds of money. You have fast money, which is active income that you earn in about 30 days or so. In real estate, this would be wholesaling. Then you have medium speed money, which is active income that takes 4 to 6 months to earn. So this would be flipping in real estate. And then you have slow money, which is passive income from cash flowing assets like lending or rentals. Okay, so what Steve teaches is you need to create fast and medium speed money from wholesaling and flipping, then use that money to fund your slow speed deals. So here's what this might look like. If you wholesaled and flipped houses and you saved enough of that cash to buy 1 rental per year, free and clear, that made $1,500 a month in cash flow, in 10 years, you would have $180,000 in annual cash flow. That's all it takes. 1 free and clear property a year for 10 years. And if you live debt-free and your living expenses are reasonable, you could be financially free for the rest of your life. So essentially, your active income from wholesaling and flipping feeds your passive income. Now that should be the goal. Steve says all the time, you can make a lot of money from flipping, but you will never build wealth from flipping alone. You have to have a wealth building plan. Okay, now what about covering your living expenses in the meantime? Steve has a plan for that too. Here's what you do. Sit down and figure out the bare minimum that you need to live on monthly to pay your bills. Let's say it's $5,000 a month or $60,000 a year. Keep your day job and hustle deals, wholesaling and flipping, until you have $60,000 set aside to replace your annual income. Put that money into a dedicated account and only draw from it $5,000 per month for the next year. Now you can quit the job and go at the business full time. And no matter how much money you make or don't make, you have your paycheck already covered for the next year. All the money the business makes stays in the business, and you don't have to worry about how you're going to pay your living expenses. The following year, give yourself a raise if you want, but do the same thing. Start the year with your salary already predetermined and set aside so you don't have to worry about it for the whole year. Be disciplined and keep to your budget no matter how much money you make that year. My oldest son, Jared, and his wife, Britta, do something very similar. Jared works in the family business and he runs my hotel in Puerto Rico. And him and Britta live entirely on Jared's income, and Britta's income goes straight into their savings and investing pool. When I got started 20 years ago, I followed Steve's advice about creating your annual salary up front. My day job paid me about $25,000 a year. So I part-time wholesaled until I did enough deals to set aside $25,000. It took me about a year side hustling nights and weekends. I mean, it was brutal. But once I had 1 year of pay set aside, I quit my job and I did wholesaling full time. My first month full time, I did 5 wholesale deals and made $52,000. But like Steve taught me, I still lived on my $25,000 a year salary that I had set aside. Now let's talk about how to put this plan into action. All you need to do is flip 10 houses a year, and in 10 years, you are financially free. Let's break it down. If you do 10 flips a year and the average net profit per flip is $45,000, that's $450,000 in a year. From that $450,000, you pay your salary, taxes, 10% to God, and you should have enough to buy 1 rental free and clear. In 10 years, you have 10 rentals pulling in $1,500 a month or $180,000 a year in passive income, and you are set for life. That's why I call it the 10-10-10 method. 10 years to flip 10 houses to acquire 10 rentals. And you are set. It's not sexy, but it's a proven plan that anyone can do. Now let's break it down further. If the average flip takes 4 months end to end, then you need basically 3 flips going on at a time to do 10 in a year. So every 4-month cycle, you do 3 deals. And if you can get your average profit up to, let's say, $75,000 per deal, you only need 6 flips a year, which is only 2 at a time. Doing 2 to 3 flips a time is completely manageable. Now, this is if you're just doing flips. If you're also wholesaling, then you could do a lot less flips. Remember, the goal with flipping is to create excess cash to buy 1 free and clear rental property per year. Now, if what I share with you on this video resonates, leave a comment and say, Steve Cook, you are a flipping genius. But seriously, never lose sight of the end game. It's to create wealth and freedom, not just to make money. But you have to get started. Step 1 is to side hustle deals until you've earned enough to replace your annual income, then go at it full time. So, where do you start? Well, I put together a 5-part video series masterclass on exactly what you need to do to get started, do your first deal, and then go on to do 6 figures a year. It's about 3.5 hours total, and it's free. If you click just right there, you can get started on your journey to financial freedom. And I'll see you on the next video.